All right, it's 7 o'clock. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the regular council meeting for Wednesday, November 21st. Is there any disclosure of pecuniary interest regarding the items on tonight's agenda? Councillor Bulmer?
No.
Councillor Roth?
No.
Councillor Spoulis?
No.
Councillor Fielding?
No.
Neither do I. I have a motion moved by Councillor Spoulis and seconded by Councillor Fielding that council receives the A, confidential verbal report from Karen Landry, CAO Clerk, regarding litigation or potential litigation, including matters before administrative tribunals affecting the municipality or local board, and personal matters about an identifiable individual, including municipal or local board employees, with respect to 4006 Highway 6, and that staff proceed as directed. B, confidential verbal report from Karen Landry, CAO Clerk, regarding litigation or potential litigation, including matters before administrative tribunals affecting the municipality or local board, and advice that is subject to solicitor-client privilege, including communications necessary for that purpose with respect to matter before the OMB, the University of Guelph, Dufferin Aggregates zoning bylaw appeal, and that staff proceed as directed. And C, confidential verbal report from Karen Landry, CAO Clerk, regarding personal matters about an identifiable individual, including municipal or local board employees, with respect to the dog catcher. All those in favor? That's carried. Yep. I have a motion moved by Councillor Fielding and seconded by Councillor Spoulis. The minutes of the following meetings be adopted as written and distributed. Council meeting November 7th, 2018, and the closed council meeting November 7th, 2018. Any discussion on those? All those in favor? That's carried. Is there any business arriving from those minutes? Seeing none. Public meetings. Just before council, we had a public meeting about an application this is a different one. Notice of complete application, notice of public meeting, D14 PIE, is part of that. It's 267 Brock Road, and this was held at 6:30 today. And communications. Ontario Government Notice of Public Information Centre, Highway 401 South Halton Truck Inspection Station. A correspondence from the Ministry of Transportation. There was a public information session last night. Councillor Spoulis?
Yes, I'd like to make several motions with respect to this item. First of all, I'd like to have MTO make a presentation to council with specific emphasis on the impacts and their proposed mitigation. Secondly, request environmental reports that some are available and some are in various stages of completion. And thirdly, to allocate budget for consultants to review the environmental reports.
Anyone else attend last night's meeting? Yes, Councillor Bulmer?
Yeah, it was not a big surprise. It wasn't a big reveal or anything. The two that were selected were the two that were the most practical, so I understand why they chose the ones they've done. The most westerly ones nearest to Victoria Road here in the township. The one thing I didn't see that I would like the township to request, and perhaps if they do come as a delegation, we could request it then, but I certainly, growing up next to the service centers at the other side of the township, they are like cities at night, and I would be concerned that this could have significant impact to the neighbors and the lighting that might be associated with these, and I'd like to see best efforts to minimize off-site impacts and lighting that respects a dark sky as much as possible. Perhaps if we don't get them here as a delegation to make that request personally, I'd like to forward that to them in a written request to have that addressed.
Okay, any other comments, Councillor Roth or Councillor Fielding? So I attended it last night as well, and indeed it was the answer they first thought of, I'm sure, with the location for the E1 and the W1 site. Certainly I support your comments, Councillor Bulmer, about the lighting and the proximity to some local residences there. Councillor Spoulis, they did come to council after the last meeting that we went to in Milton when we requested it then. So I would suggest that probably a request that they come to council to talk about it is a good approach. And maybe if it could be worded such that if they forwarded those reports ahead of time, any questions could maybe be resolved in their delegation, maybe something along those lines. Would everybody be okay with that? You want a motion along that?
That's okay. I can take that
as well as the budget dollars as well.
And
the budget. Okay.
Allocating budget dollars to review these.
Okay. Everybody okay with that?
Yep.
You'll have those discussions in the budget anyway. Okay. And it's 5 after, so we'll have our first delegation. We have the City of Guelph is here to talk about the presentation that's up on the screen now.
Good evening, Mayor. Yeah, good evening. Thank you. Mayor and councillors, my name is Emily Stahl. I'm the manager of technical services at the City of Guelph Water Department. So as you mentioned, I'm here to talk about the Aqueduct Middle Reach section, which is that middle section up on the slide there and in front of you, to talk about some upcoming important maintenance activities that we'd like to start with on that section of land. So just for the benefit of people who don't actually know where that is. So the aqueduct as a total extends from the Arkle Spring Grounds, which is just west of Watson Road South, to the FM Woods pumping station, which is located in the City of Guelph at the bottom of the lower reach there. And the city owns the lands all the way through the aqueduct, including the spring grounds. And the middle section is where we're going to focus this presentation today. So, great. So the aim of our presentation today is to just talk about this upcoming maintenance plan and works that we have that we would like to start in 2019. And that will actually start with an inspection of the aqueduct section, that middle reach there. But in order to do that, we have to do some significant works in order to gain access to the property, which I'll discuss in a minute. But there's also important information we want to share about some of the challenges of this section, accessing this section of aqueduct, but the importance of the works we have to complete. So the middle reach is about 1.4 kilometers of 900 millimeter concrete gravity pipe and runs again from Watson Road South through Cooks Mill Road up to the Barber Scout Camp, or I should say down to the Barber Scout Camp, just outside, right beside Stone Road Mall there. So kind of that red dotted line is where we believe the aqueduct goes. The middle reach was constructed around 1962. And it is the least understood section of our aqueduct that we own today, which is the driver for why we need to complete this inspection work. The aqueduct as a whole provides the city about 60 to 80% of the water supply on a daily basis, and has been updated in various stages since the Walkerton, which was about 10 years ago. So the middle reach, like I mentioned, is the last section for us to take a look at and then do any upgrades as needed. The purpose of our project is to survey, inspect, and understand the condition of the middle reach. This is a critical piece of infrastructure for the city, and as per our drinking water quality risk assessment, it is important for us to mitigate any potential risks associated with this piece of infrastructure. So in order to do this, we need to construct a maintenance laneway, which would then provide us access to the aqueduct if we needed to actually go in and fix and repair or do something in order to ensure that the water supply isn't at risk. So and this is obviously going to have impact on potential neighbors that are backing onto the aqueduct property right now, and we are going to be communicating with these property owners as early as tomorrow. So the works will also help us define a long-term maintenance strategy and plan, a resilience plan for the aqueduct, and also help inform our asset management planning in order to ensure that this piece of infrastructure stays in good condition for now and in the future. So there's lots of challenges associated with this section. If you've ever been over on Cooks Mill Road, you probably might have not even known the aqueduct was there. So some of the pictures at the bottom of this slide aim to highlight some of the challenges of what we're trying to look at here and how we're trying to access this piece of infrastructure. So we can see that the aqueduct really runs through these wooded areas. We have kind of poor records on exactly where it is, so we need to go in and do a proper survey, as well as the size and material of the pipe. So we've done some investigation work to figure that out, but we're not 100% sure what was actually there. As it is the main transmission name for the city's water supply, and obviously if we needed to do any critical emergency works, it can only be offline for a matter of hours. So we need to ensure we have quite a contingency plan in place. And there's also a security risk associated with the middle reach, as right now most of it is inaccessible. So to any sort of maintenance activities or trucks or any equipment that we might need to get in there. So I just wanted to highlight in the next two slides kind of our key points of our milestones and work plan. The city has been executing a work plan over the last year, including our communications plan, which means meeting with key stakeholders like yourselves tonight. We've also met with the Ministry of Environment, Conservation and Parks, as well as the Health Unit, to discuss our contingency plans in order to ensure that we're maintaining water quality to the city during our potential maintenance and inspection activities. This week, we aim to send out letters to all those adjacent landowners and inform them of works, as well as have an offer to meet and discuss the project in person and launch our project website. So this is going to be a longer-term project, so we want to make sure we have a website available for people to get updates as needed. We also are planning on putting some signage in place to notify people that are using the properties that maintenance and construction activities will be starting. And then, as necessary, we might need to put up additional fencing depending on what our plans are and how construction progresses. Our pre-construction activities, we have already started including our environmental impact study, which is just finishing off right now. We would like to do a scrubbing this winter, which means taking down some of those trees, removing some of the brush so we can actually complete a proper survey of the property, as well as doing an pre-inspection activity with a drone in order to map the entire area to see what's actually there from above and help us with our planning of what that laneway might look like. To do that, we're going to also be producing a tender, which hopefully will be released in the next couple of weeks, to do that pre-construction survey work and design that maintenance laneway. Throughout the winter, once all that other work is done, we're actually going to hopefully go in and inspect the aqueduct and have all our contingency plans in place, including extra pipes, some potential ways that we're going to route water around if we need to shut sections of the aqueduct off during that time period, so in order to complete any emergency repairs at that time. But looking to the future, we're going to create that longer-term maintenance plan and feasibility assessment to ensure that we have the redundancy we need in order to maintain the flow of water to the city. So our updates, the best place to get those updates will be on the website, which can be accessed at guelph.ca/water. So the aqueduct, as a key piece of infrastructure, appears in a couple of the City of Guelph's master planning documents, so we just wanted to highlight a few of those here tonight. The first one is our water and wastewater servicing master plan, which is based on the idea of moving the water from the spring grounds into the City of Guelph. The second one, as this infrastructure is critical to the city's water supply, also appears in the water supply master plan, which we will be updating in 2019. So we are hoping that we will come back and talk to you about that, and there'll be plenty of opportunity for public input on that water supply master plan. But it will also review the idea of that transmission of water from the spring grounds to the City of Guelph, and look at potential ways on how that water will continue flowing to the city. So we thank you for your time this evening, and the project team, myself, we have Wayne Gallagher, who's the division manager, Peter Brisato, who's the general manager, and Robin Puskas, who's our project manager behind me here. Welcome any questions. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Councillor Saboulis.
Just a question, curiosity. Do you ever consider putting a duplicate pipe up Watson and along Stone to provide an alternate route?
Yeah, through you, Mr. Mayor. Yes, that would be in our water and wastewater servicing master plan. So there is some preliminary work that's in that plan currently, but will be reevaluated through the water supply master plan and that servicing master plan as well.
Councillor Roth.
Well, I'm really glad to hear that you are going to send out notices to the adjacent property owners in the township. In that correspondence, will there be contact people to contact if we need to, or if they need to directly or through us?
Yeah, through you, Mr. Mayor, absolutely. Yeah, they'll have the contact information for Robin as the project manager, as well as myself.
Okay. I think that's all I have.
Okay, Councillor Bulmer.
Thank you. Good evening. Welcome to the township.
Thank you.
Fascinating. I couldn't help thinking when you said you believe you know where it is and you want to make sure you know where it is and it is where you think it is. Mm-hmm. It reminded me of the time I had to find my well in my front yard. It had been buried and out there witching for water. I expect you're not going to be having people out witching for it.
I don't think so.
Well, one interesting thing was I read in the information we got ahead of time mentioned some trails that might be on this stretch. And I'm familiar with it. There's a trail that goes up east of Watson Road, but I wasn't familiar with any trails that crisscrossed over that portion from Watson to Stone.
Yeah, through you, Mr. Mayor, there is a trail that connects to Cooks Mill Road through Barber Scout. So in order to connect to the Stone Road section of the trail that follows the aqueduct through the lower reach. So we have been in discussions with the trail group that maintains that and let them know that the upcoming work is coming and they're already going to start noticing their members and stuff that to be aware. yeah.
Ah, great. And just another point of curiosity is, if it's all overgrown with trees, is there a risk that the roots of the trees have invaded the concrete pipe?
Yeah, through you, Mr. Bear, that is a concern. So part of the reason why we're doing the inspection is to see where those tree roots may have done that. But also, that's why we're only scrubbing the property. We're not actually going to grub the property because we don't want to fall any trees that may have attached to the pipe and then cause other damage as well. So, yeah.
So if there's a line of taller trees, that might give a hint as to the location of the pipe.
Exactly.
I see, all right. Thank you so much.
You can see that in the pictures a little bit on that one slide. Yeah.
Thanks.
Councillor Fielding.
Thank you for your presentation, Emily. I don't have any questions. Thank you.
Thank you. I mean, we knew this was there. We didn't know exactly where it was, but of course it impacts our road allowance as well as the county's road allowance. So we encourage you to keep in touch with our Public Works Department and the county's Public Works as well. Just how wide is your property as it passes through there? Do you have enough room to actually put like a roadway, a maintenance roadway along there?
Yeah, Mayor, yes, we believe we do have enough room to maintain and create a maintenance roadway. The preliminary discussions we've had with a few consultants who do this work on a general basis have various ideas on how to do laneways in sensitive areas. So it won't look like your traditional road. So it may have pinch points, right? It may have wider points, just depending on how we're moving, because we obviously need to stay away from the aqueduct too as well. We don't want to put heavy equipment on it too. So it won't be a straight line through the forest.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Thank you very much for coming tonight.
Thank you.
I have a motion moved by Councillor Fielding and seconded by Councillor Sapoulis. The council receives the presentation by the City of Guelph with respect to the aqueduct middle reach maintenance and inspection activities. All those in favor? That's carried. It's not quite 7:20 yet, so we'll go back to the agenda for a second. Region of Waterloo Integrated Urban Water System, Cambridge East Water Supply, correspondence dated October 26th. Anything there? Freedom of Information and Protection of Privacy Act, the rest of the correspondence associated with that. Any comments there?
I just didn't see anything more that added to what we have already.
No. In fact, a lot of it was the duplicate information
Exactly.
from previous. Clara Maltby Secondary Plan and Master Environmental Servicing Plan, correspondence from the City of Guelph. Councillor Spoulis.
I'd just like to have assurance that we'll have our county staff review the policy directions associated with the city's Guelph.
Yes, we will be.
Yep.
Sarah's here.
Okay.
Thank you.
And then next one is monthly monitoring reports for Mill Creek Pit from September and October. Any questions about those? Seeing none. Actually, I think before we get into the compliance reports, we'll go. I have 7:19. I can't see the clock there. Councillor Fielding, can you see how far it is past?
We have about
minutes yet?
30 seconds, maybe?
Longer than that.
Is it? It's right where the reflection
What,
is.
7:19?
Okay.
I think we've got 40
Let's do-
seconds, yeah.
Okay. Then I'd ask, okay, we'll do the delegation. And I'd ask the next delegation, Mr. Jeffrey Blythe, to come up, please.
Thank you.
Welcome.
Well, ladies and gentlemen. So I appear again.
Could you just turn the microphone towards you? That's it. Perfect. Thank you.
You're welcome. So I appear again. I'm going to talk just very briefly. Hopefully I can make this brief. So we're here to address the request for a noise impact study to be done along Queen Street, considering the development that's happening there. Again, I speak for not only myself, but 5 residences along Queen Street. Now, we did request for an impact study to be done. And it wasn't just for the placements of homes that was there, but it was also done, just to review my notes here, for particular sound sources that might be developed along with that development. You know, sheds that might be placed near the highway, trees and foliage, and more importantly, maybe solid fencing that might be put along the highway. So our concerns were not addressed, and sort of after the fact, after everything was said and done, we were given back a report, or somewhat of a report, that the township did. And in layman's terms, the report says that you did nothing, except for the fact that there was a sound survey done with a company that looked at the draft plans and saw the drawings of the trees on the draft plan and decided that there would be no noise impact regarding the development when it came to trees and foliage. So we're not, or at least I'm not, I can only speak for myself, I guess. So I don't know anything about municipal affairs. But thank goodness, I guess I am an investigator, and I have lots of lovely people that have an office, and they did some research for me. And now it's true that if there's no, if you go by existing code, if there's no change to the development in the sense of the plan itself, then of course you don't require anything new. But even if there's an amendment, it always usually triggers a sound survey or other surveys that are to be done at a particular site. Now, in speaking with in other various townships, in one in particular, a conference call with Guelph, they indicated very directly that they would request surveys done with the development, especially along Highway 6, because it is a highway. There is lots of traffic there. They would, even if there would not be any signals to have a survey done, that they would give it to their traffic division, and their traffic division would go ahead and get a sound survey done. And also, because you have shared responsibility with Highway 6 and MTO, that they would give that information to the MTO, and the MTO themselves may go ahead and do a survey of their own, right? So obviously none of that stuff was done, and we couldn't address this after the fact because, like I said, we never received anything back until everything was sort of finalized with the developer. So we're really requesting that this gets done. We personally don't feel that it's the developer's responsibility to do it because we feel the delinquency of the council or for our request that wasn't even addressed at all, which means I guess I'm paying for it being a taxpayer. That sort of addresses, in a nutshell, without getting into too much detail, because this isn't the first time I spoke about this, right? So I'm not really adding anything new on this, except just the disturbing news, or maybe not disturbing, but disquieting news that the bypass is now being under review. And with the change of government, they are now under review for the bypass itself. Now, they're not leaking any details of what that means. I'm sure you guys know more about that, but that's information that was given to my office and was given to me, that it is now, they are reviewing the $600 million bypass, and it's in their council right now for discussion. So, I mean, the reality, I mean, again, I'm a layman, so speaking layman terms, you know, if the bypass goes through, this is probably more of a moot issue, because I'm assuming that all the traffic is going to be flowed out, right? So it wouldn't be a big issue, but now we have this matzo ball to deal with. So we're requesting that it be done again. So that takes care of that. And just on a secondary concern, and we feel we're going to keep bringing this up. So the water levels at the rear of 3 or 4 of the properties, 3 in particular, have risen since I last spoke here. Now, they haven't risen to a large degree, but they have risen, at least on my property, enough to cut into property that wasn't flooded before. So it's cutting into my property now. So at the back of my property, I may have a small pond, and when I say a small pond, maybe the size of me to the councillors. But now it seems to be flooding up a little bit, and that was due to the average rainfall that we had in September and October. So nothing was going to be now noticed until the springtime. Because that sort of really rear the property is not affected. But what I can tell you is that if we have new, mine isn't new, but my neighbors are new water tables that were made for sewer and septic, right? And that water level doesn't have to even get close before natural aqua draw starts to occur on the septic systems, which has a tendency to ruin septic systems, and they can be at a distance of anywhere between 50 to 75 feet, depending on the water draw, right? So, I mean, that's where we're going to be running into problems. We were guaranteed that no excess water would be running off the development, so that's obviously not the case. Now, I know I briefly spoke with the developer, and he said that they are putting in some measurements to take care of some of that when it comes to a specific residence right across from the development. And we're hoping that maybe in the springtime that might take care of the water flow, because it may flow out into more of the watershed that's at the back there and not affect the properties right across, but we won't see that until time happens. But I'm just making the council aware that this is an ongoing issue, and so we're making it your ongoing issue too. Okay, that's it. Thank you for your time.
All right, so any questions
in
for
time? I wasn't
delegation?
done.
Councillor Spoulis.
Not a questions for delegations, but we'll get to the report. I got questions of staff.
Okay. Councillor Roth?
I have no question.
Councillor Bowman?
No questions, thanks.
Councillor Fielding?
Just a comment to Mr. Blythe. We discussed this at council regarding the Highway 6 bypass, and we were a little worried about a letter that one of your neighbors got from the minister. It didn't sound really committing, you know, but as I think it was Mayor Lever pointed out, they are reviewing all projects. But this past weekend, I bumped into Dan Muse. He's the executive assistant for MPP Donna Scully, and they a little part of Donna's riding is the Hamilton part of Highway 6 that hasn't been expanded. And I was talking to Dan about it, and he said they had a meeting last week with the MTO, and it was the first question on Donna's list, and they said, well, we are reviewing all projects, but that one is a go for sure. At the Highway 6 expansion or realignment.
Right. I'm going to have to thank you for the information. That's hearsay, right? So
it is.
Yeah.
But I'm just,
No, that's good. No,
telling
that's
you
excellent.
that-
No, that's
I mean,
good.
because it's all kind of hearsay what we've heard,
that's
so, yeah.
that's excellent, because that's going to help us as well too. That's going to alleviate some
I hope so,
tension,
yeah.
for sure. Yep.
So that's
Okay.
good news. So
Great, thanks.
So we're not all hearing the same things, but
Right.
that seemed to be a good, yeah.
Right. Okay.
Thank you.
Thanks.
And I'll just add to that we discussed this briefly at our last council meeting. I also spoke with Speaker Arnott about it and asked him to follow up with MTO, and the messages he was getting was similar, that virtually every project was under review.
Oh, yes.
That was what we have at that point when I spoke to him, so.
Right. Okay.
Okay.
Thanks.
All right, thank you.
That's everything. Thank you.
So I have a motion moved by Councillor Sapoulis and seconded by Councillor Fielding that council receives the presentation from Jeffrey Blythe with respect to PD 2018-011 DRS Developments Limited. All those in favor? That's carried.
Okay. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. You might want to, there's another delegation regarding DRS, so you might want to
I will.
hang around for a second here, okay? And are we there? Yes, we are. So Mr. Ron Scheidel, or if you're here, could I ask you to come up, please?
Rob Stoll's going to do our...
Oh, sorry, Mr. Stovall? That's the name I had on the delegation list here.
They came fully prepared tonight, the winter garb, presentation, and I forgot my glasses.
Oh, no.
Here we go. Mr. Mayor, thank you, and members of council and staff. It's good to see you again. It's been quite a while. I know there's going to be some changes, and there have been some changes in council. And I'd just like to take the opportunity for myself and from my clients, DRS, to thank you and thank council and your efforts in council are much appreciated, and I know that the reason that you do it to be a councillor or mayor isn't for the money. It's that you honestly try to help the township and the county improve. So on behalf of a member of the county and my clients, thank you and wish you luck. So Mr. Mayor, in 2015, in June, we had a public meeting on this application. And at that meeting, I can honestly say that my mind was thinking about the Blue Jays at the time. They were quite a bit better, but a number of issues were raised at the public meeting. One of the important ones was the potential for impact related to noise. At the completion of the meeting, I had the opportunity to review the minutes, and I was directed at the time to address that matter. And in the summertime, we retained a noise consultant to consider the comments and the setting and the potential for effects on the adjacent residences. A report was completed and submitted to the township on August 5th, 2005, or 2015. And I also had the opportunity to provide a review letter in December 2015, so my notes say December 3rd. And in that letter, I also reviewed the results of the noise study. Subsequent to that letter, council reviewed the application as a whole and considered that matter amongst many others that were important to council and to the residents and to agencies. And the development was subsequently approved. Council recommended approval to the county, and the county approved the draft plan with conditions. And we're presently moving towards fulfilling those conditions, and we have construction that's going on the site. So with regard to the specific issue of noise, our noise consultant did not agree with the neighbors that there would be a potential for a negative impact. The negative impact or the noise that is occurring in the area is a result of trucks and cars driving on the highway, not about the sound back and forth, bouncing back and forth. And I think that the main thing that I can say as a result of everything that's been considered is that it's important that the bypass gets built. We know from DRS's standpoint that MTO is actively I would say expropriating lands in the area with the full intent to complete the project. I don't know anything about what the new minister's doing right now. I guess we won't find out for a while, but it's our understanding that the project's moving forward, and we see that as the biggest single thing that can help reduce levels of noise in the area. So with that said, I'm here to address any concerns, questions that council may have, and again, I'd like to thank you.
Okay. Councillor Spoulis.
I don't have any questions.
Councillor Rowe.
I have no question.
Councillor Bulmer.
No questions.
Councillor Fielding.
I have no questions. I agree that the Highway 6 bypass will help noise, period, in Morriston, so thank you.
So I just have one, and it has to do with the water, actually. There was, if you recall at that meeting and then through the approval process, there was a lot of discussion around the handling of the water with the pond, the piping that was then going to carry that water if there was excess out towards the highway. And so far, I guess what I'd like to know is through the development, have things behaved as they would have been expected and what you were planning on?
So, Mr. Mayor, I was here to address the noise matter. I'm not the water guy.
I guess it's a question that I would like to see you follow up with.
Will do.
Okay.
All right, well. Will do. Sure.
Yeah.
Will do. Very good.
All right. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
I have a motion moved by Councillor Fielding and seconded by Councillor Spoulis. The council receives the presentation by Rob Stovall with respect to PD 2018-011 DRS Developments Limited. All those in favor? That's carried. Then, council, we have a report on this. If you're okay, we'll just move the report discussion up till now from the planning and building. It's item B. So Councillor Spoulos, you indicated you had some questions about the report.
Yes, I spoke to our county planner, Mr. Wilhelm, and she gave me a bit of explanation with respect to the noise issue and the requirements to have a study being undertaken. I was wondering if we can ask her to step forward and just restate what she told me, and for the benefit of council as well.
Ms. Wilhelm, could you come and join us, please?
Is this on?
Yep.
Okay, thank you. I'll try to duplicate our conversation, Councillor Sepulus. So I will clarify that I was not the planner on the application at the time, but I've had the opportunity to review the material. Some of the issues that I wanted to clarify are the fact that the zoning was in place for the subdivision, so the land's already benefited from the Hamlet residential zoning, and the same zoning exists across the road, and so those are both compatible land uses. They're one and the same. If the landowner wished to put up a fence, they could have done so at any time across the entire frontage without there being any requirements with respect to noise attenuation. And I did want to also clarify the fact that as Mr. Stovall stated that the source of the noise is the road. Houses, sheds, other buildings are not stationary sources of sound. So a stationary source of sound would be something like an industrial or a commercial building that would cause sound level limits, and these are addressed in the MOE guidelines. So again, I think the main focus was that they're compatible land uses, and I think that was the main thing that I wanted to communicate, if that's adequate. Okay.
All right. No other questions?
No other questions.
Okay. Councillor Roth?
I have no question.
Councillor Bulmer?
No, that's fine, thank you.
Councillor Fielding?
No, I think that's good information. Thank you.
All right. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Any other discussion on this report then, Councillor Spoulos?
I'm not supporting going ahead with the noise study.
Okay. Councillor Roth, any other questions on the report?
I also won't support the sound study.
Okay. Councillor Bulmer?
Yeah, no more comment on that.
Councillor Fielding?
I won't be supporting the study.
Okay, so I have a motion moved by Councillor Roth and seconded by Councillor Bulmer. The report PD 2018-011 regarding a noise concern regarding DRS Developments Limited be received. All those in favor? That's carried. Thank you. Then I'd ask our fire department to come up. We have the chief and the deputy chief here. Oh, just came for backup?
Yes.
Welcome, Chief.
Your Worship and members of council, thank you very much for letting me report on fire report number 2018-004, and this is to be received by council for information purposes only. So I'll summarize the report. The first few pages of the report includes an article written by Mike Robinson. Thank you very much, Mike, from the Wellington Advertiser about our 50th anniversary celebration. The event was well attended by family, friends, neighbors, dignitaries, and firefighters past and present. And thank you all for your attendance. The pictures in the report were taken by Karen DeLue, wife of firefighter Mike DeLue. They illustrate the Puslinch firefighters that were in attendance and some of the fire safety activities that were available that day, and also the great attendance by our community. Now to summarize our emergency responses, the third quarter of 2018 had Puslinch Fire and Rescue respond to 85 emergency calls. Thankfully, there were no structure fires from July to September, but there were 7 vehicle fires and 2 grass bush fires. The majority of our emergency calls in that quarter were motor vehicle accidents. And as of the end of September, Plus Lunch Fire and Rescue Service had responded to 286 emergency calls for 2018, and that's up 9% from 2017. To report on our professional development, firefighter training is on track with our 3-year training plan. This year, Plus Lunch Fire and Rescue included defensive driver training. That was specific to emergency services, and that was from a company called DriveWise. We investigated some cost-saving opportunities through our insurance broker, Jeffrey & Spence, for administering this program, but there was no opportunities available. However, talking further about this program with our insurance company, Frank Cowan Insurance, they have realized the benefit of this driver training program and have decided to develop their own driver training program for emergency services, and they will offer this to Plus Lunch Fire and Rescue in the future free of charge. They are in contact with DriveWise now and will be using their platform to develop this program. Yep. And just an update on public fire safety education and prevention. It's ongoing. Public fire safety education is always ongoing for us. This will be highlighted in my next report. But just to keep you updated on what's happening recently is that we just completed our home safety visit program. We targeted the areas of Morriston and Aberfoyle Mills this year. Plus Lunch Fire and Rescue will also be participating in fire evacuation drills tomorrow at Morrison Park Nursing Home. And this Sunday, we'll be participating in the Christmas parade. And just one other further update is we are recruiting for auxiliary firefighters starting December 1st, and we have changed our sign accordingly, and we started advertising on our website, and you'll see an advertisement in the Plus Lunch Pioneer for that as well. And that concludes my report.
Okay, thank you very much. Councillor Spoulis.
Yeah, it's not, somewhat tangentially regarding the firefighter training. There was an item in the correspondence from the Minister of Community Safety saying, after hearing these concerns, our government has decided to repeal the firefighter certification regulation effective February 5, 2018. Does this save us any future costs?
At this present time, it does. I will not be asking council for additional funding when it comes to training. However, that being said, even though our hand isn't being forced to meet this certification for our firefighters, I am definitely in favor, actually our senior management is, of getting our firefighters trained to this level before our hand is forced. That being said, we are looking for opportunities within our existing operating budget to meet these certification requirements.
You recall the amount of money we avoid paying out for these courses?
Yes. When I reported to council, I think it was earlier on this year, previous budget estimates were an impact of $80,000 to $100,000, and those were mostly in regards to wages for our firefighters to attend these specialized rescue courses. However, now with what I consider an allowance of time to meet this criteria, I will do our best, or my best, we will do our best, myself and the Deputy Chief, to incorporate these costs within our existing budget.
Thank you, that's all I have.
Councillor Roth.
Well, thank you. I'm glad to hear that. I have no other questions other than, what is Fireground Communications?
Okay. Fireground Communications, what that means is a lot of times our fireground operations are very complex when it comes to structure fires, and a lot of times we don't have line of sight with the people that are operating in different areas of that property. So communications are crucial, and we use portable radios, mobile radios in our apparatus to communicate with one another. And there's a certain technique that's used by fire services across not only Ontario, across our nation, internationally, that are maintained to make sure that our strategic objectives are met when it comes to these events. And one of the courses I alluded to that we still train on is called Blue Card Incident Command Training, and that identifies the structure that we keep when it comes to fireground communications. You're welcome.
Councillor Bulmer.
Thank you. Good evening. I was also intrigued by the letter we received about the relaxing of the rules regarding the certification or the removal of the force, the deadline. But I really appreciate your approach to that you would like to still work to achieving those certifications, because in my mind I think of if something went wrong, if someone gets hurt, something doesn't work right, whether they're voluntary or mandatory, they're still out there, and they still create, in my mind, an expectation of training standard, of certification, whether it's required or not. But if we're going to move to an extended timeline, what would be your idea that for how long would it take? And I'm not suggesting I want to do it right away to the 2019 original deadline, but what are you envisioning this would change into a 5-year target, a 4-year target?
I think a 5-year target would be realistic. So next year, well, just to step back a little bit, we have been proactive with a lot of the certification already, which is good. So we were in good standing. Pardon?
We were close.
Yes, exactly. And what we're doing next year is we're going to concentrate on our efforts on pump operations, which was one of the items that was listed in that proposed legislation. And then the future years after that, we will look towards technical rescue, expertise, and certification. And that will be based on the service level that council recommends. And actually in December, I'll be proposing some modifications to our establishing and regulating bylaw for the fire department, and of course council will decide what levels we will meet there, but based on that, then we will move forward in the years after 2019 to meet those certifications.
And if it's a 5-year timeline for the existing crew, if a new recruit came on, how long would it take a new recruit to get to that level through the
It's a bit of a process for sure. As fire chief, I will concentrate our efforts in having them certified to firefighter 1 and firefighter 2 levels, which we do presently anyway. When it comes to the technical expertise, I will probably wait till the recruits on the fire department for a number of years before we try and get them to that certification level. And that being said, we will rely on the expertise of our existing staff to get us through those situations.
Right. Okay. Super. Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Councillor Fielding?
Thank you, Chief Gomes and Deputy Chief Churchill. This is my last meeting, so I just wanted to say that it has really been a pleasure to work with such an excellent fire department over the years. You've always maintained, everyone has maintained their professionalism, and it's just really meant a lot to me. I've always been proud of our fire department. We do great training with people. I think it's a testament to that is how many of our firefighters have made a step into professional firefighting. So I will miss everyone, and you're doing great work, and I will always think highly of your department. So I just wanted to convey those words to you here. So thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks. Just a question back to this driver training. So I'm really happy to hear about this collaboration with Cowan. Did they indicate that this is something they're going to do with other fire departments too, or are they going to trial run it with us? Or?
I was talking to Colin just a few weeks ago when they were here addressing council, and it's still in the development stages. I'm not sure where they're going to take it from there, but that's when he verbally told me that that will be offered to us free of charge, and I think we initiated the process through them, and they see the value in that. So where they take it from there, I'm not sure, but if I was a business owner, I would definitely be promoting that with other emergency services.
Well, it certainly sounds like a good program. When you talk about what the information we had from the county fire training officer as well, it all seems to fit together pretty good. So, thank you very much, Chief.
You're welcome. Thank you.
I have a motion moved by Councillor Spoulis and seconded by Councillor Fielding. The report FIR 2018-004 with respect to Puss Lynch Fire and Rescue Services monthly update be received for information. All those in favor? That's carried. Thanks again. Okay, back to the agenda. Okay, the compliance assessment reports. There was a long list of compliance assessment reports here, all the way from A to S. Were there any questions about any of the individual ones there? Does the motion cover all of them, or are they individual?
Well,
We're going to,
you're all covered.
okay. Any questions about
Yeah,
Council?
I have two of them. There's some remedial action with respect to Aberfoyle Pit Number 1, 76A. Sorry, not 76A, that was the wrong one. The 76B, Arkell Ridge Development. There's some remedial actions noted in the report, and also some general comments. And similarly, Martini Pits, 76E, there are also some concerns or comments noted on page 388. So I would like to suggest that we put a letter to these owners saying we've noted these concerns by the ministry and ask you to follow up with us.
Okay. Councillor Rowe?
Yeah, I have nothing.
Councillor Bulmer?
Yeah, just a couple of comments on the Arkell Ridge. You know, we often have a perception that it's this Wild West out there. But here we have a couple of reports that really, I was surprised to see that the reports are claiming you can't have mulch or wood chips or the material that you're not going to use for the berms. I'm sure the ministry will take care of those. The other one, there was an interesting point on one of those two reports regarding a maintenance shed that was built. And if we're going to be sending a letter, I would like to check with our building department just to confirm that a building permit was issued for that, and if not, perhaps the letter could request that the operator maybe come in and get one if it was large enough to require one.
Right, yeah.
Just in addition to cleaning up the requirements under the Aggregate Resources Act, perhaps we can address any of the requirements under the building code or the municipal requirements. The other one I noted was we have a new operator in the township. There's a new kid in town. James Dick Construction has taken over the old Domtar site called Glen. It's now called Glen Christie Pit. I can't remember the full name of it. Now that pit has been dormant as long as I can remember, and it's a quarry. And I couldn't tell from the report if they've started blasting or not yet. It didn't indicate that. I couldn't see if they had. And if they hadn't, perhaps we could send a letter to the operator, to James Dick, and just ask them if they would be willing to send letters to any of the residents, say west of 32, down in that region, that advise them when they are there and they will be starting blasting. I know from when I was at Centennial High School in Guelph, when they were blasting at the Domtar pit across their side of the Hanlon, the school would shake. And I can imagine for someone sitting in their basement the first day they blast it at this quarry, they may not feel it, but they'd certainly hear it. And if they're just forewarned, I think that'd be helpful. I don't think that's asking a lot, just for them to let the residents know that blasting will be commencing at some time in the future, and when that might be.
Yeah. Okay, Councillor Fielding?
I don't have any comments, thanks.
Yeah, so indeed, the Glen Christie one that James Dick has taken over, when I saw that on there, I went and looked, and the license is actually for a pit and a quarry, so it's got both licenses, as you point out, been dormant for quite a long time, and it's directly behind, pardon me, the recently approved Tri-City pit, because of course we're right on the boundary of Puss Lynch and Guelph-Aramasa. The Tri-City pit was in Guelph-Aramasa, but the exit from this facility is going to be onto 124 into Guelph-Aramasa as well. So I'd like to see them have some communication with the local residents about, like you pointed out here, about what their activities are going to be. I have no knowledge that they have done anything, and of course, because they're just reactivating, I don't think there's any requirement for them to do anything. But I think it would be in their best interest to contact the local neighbors and indicate what they're planning and a time frame around it. The fact that they indicate they've put in a new scale house would seem that things are coming pretty quickly. But, and I also notified the county finance department to make sure that MPAC is aware of the changes and activities on the site, so they're following up on that as well.
Good idea.
We'll have intergovernmental affairs first.
Oh, so it's all together? Okay. So we'll go to intergovernmental affairs then. And so intergovernmental affairs, the first one's the GRCA current newsletter. Then AMO, the annual report on the federal gas tax. The Ministry of Community Safety and Correctional Services, the repeal of firefighter certification we just talked about. Ministry of Environment, Conservation and Parks, permit to take water for St. Mary's. Notice it's 10 years.
Yeah.
Yes, Councillor Fielding?
Yeah, yes, just to point out, it is 10 years and the amount of taking.
Yes.
You know, and for one pit, compared to, and we just hear so much about one water taker.
Yes.
And this just goes to prove that it's a mutual thing.
I think we talked about it, Councillor, it has to be looked at in the big picture, not singling out
Exactly,
individual
yeah.
users. Number 5 is Amaranth, the permit to take water bottling. They want the same as municipal, including source water protection activities. Wellington County is a Brock Road open house on the plans here on the 27th next week from 5 to 7. Hamilton, their support for Amaranth, not interfere with dairy management system. If you looked at the timing on that, that was all before the resolution. Well, actually, it hasn't been passed by U.S. Congress, I understand, so it's not final yet. MECP again, extend the moratorium on permit to take water bottling. I think we'd already talked about that. Canada Safety Council, an info booklet on preventing and dealing with floods. We don't hear a lot about floods here, but indeed we did have one last year with the ice jam on Cook's Mill. So I don't know whether we want to get some of those booklets and maybe have them.
That's available online, I did check.
Is it?
Yeah.
Okay, so maybe, all right. We just point people there, something on the website that says that information's available. Councillor Bulmer?
I was just thinking, would this be something the county library system might want to have a few on hand?
Oh, that's a good idea, yeah.
At no cost to the county.
Right. Good idea. I know it's a very hot topic in the north end of the county, particularly in Harrison. They have issues with floods there. The GRCA, 6 McCormick Lane, deemed surplus. We know about that property that's over there. It's closed up now. Guelph condominium approved, 1159 Victoria Road. And the last one was the Township of McKellar, concerned about future governance models, and they're concerned about the local representatives and them representing all municipalities and not making too much towards their focus individually there. So I have a motion moved by Councillor Spoulis and seconded by Councillor Fielding that the intergovernmental affairs and correspondence items listed on the council agenda for the November 21st, 2018 council meeting be received. All those in favor? That's carried.
Did we receive the aggregate reports?
That's why it said and correspondence.
Oh, I see.
That's
Right.
what I asked CAO about prior to moving on. And delegations we've done, fire and rescue we've done, administration. Okay. I have a motion moved by Councillor Fielding and seconded by Councillor Sapoulis. The council receives report ADM 2018-038 regarding amendment to the council committees and other appointments, compensation, benefits, and expense policy. And the council enacts a bylaw amending bylaw 012-2018, being a bylaw to adopt the council committees and other appointments, compensation, benefits, and expense policy as outlined in this report. Is there any discussion on that? All those in favor? That's carried. Cambridge East Water. A motion moved by Councillor Roth and seconded by Councillor Bulmer. The council receives report ADM 2018-039 regarding the Cambridge East Water Supply Class Environmental Assessment Update for information, and a copy of the report be forwarded to the Region of Waterloo. Any discussion on that? Councillor Bulmer.
Thank you. Yes, I noticed in this report there were two things that related to the expansion, slight, modest expansion of the protection zones that were related to the septic tank inspections, and we've talked about recovering the costs for those, and I want to make sure we reiterate that
when we forward this.
When we forward this, as well as there was he mentioned that there may be requirements for some plans to be produced, risk assessment plans for any agricultural operations in the area. I'd also like to see that the costs for those are covered for anybody who has to do those as well, since they wouldn't have to do them otherwise. And I can't imagine there's more than one or two down there that would.
No, I don't think of any intensive operations going on down that way, so.
But just to have it included would be beneficial.
Yeah. Is everybody else okay with that? Yeah. Okay. All right then. Any other comments on it? All those in favor? That's carried. The building department. A motion moved by Councillor Bomer and seconded by Councillor Roth that report BLDG 2018-004 with respect to the building department monthly update October 2018 be received for information. All those in favor? That's carried. We've done DRS. Creation notices of motion. Committee minutes. We have a motion moved by Councillor Bomer and seconded by Councillor Roth that Council receives the following committee minutes: Planning and Development, October 9th, 2018, and the Committee of Adjustment, October 9th, 2018. Any discussion on those? All those in favor? That's carried. Municipal announcements. Councillor Spitz.
I have none.
We just talked about it. Councillor Roth.
I have none.
Councillor Bomer.
Would this be an appropriate time for me to say some?
I think we're going to do something at the end. So
All right,
if you
I'll
have a
save it.
municipal announcement, I'm going to take my lead to add an agenda item at the end.
Yes, okay. Good for you.
Councillor Fielding?
I too wanted to say a few words, but would
Yeah,
you
so we'll
like
do
me to?
something.
Okay.
There's not much longer. We just go through the bylaws and that, but before we adjourn. Bylaws. So I have a motion moved by Councillor Roth and seconded by Councillor Bomer that the following bylaw be taken as read 3 times and finally passed in open council. Bylaw 065-2018 being a bylaw to confirm the proceedings of council for the corporation of the Township of Puslinch at its meeting held on the 21st day of November 2018. All those in favor? That's carried. Okay, and then before we adjourn, I'll just ask if anybody has, it's this last council meeting of this term, if anybody has any comments they'd like to make. Councillor Saboulis.
Well, I'd like to thank Susan for being my left-hand person here. It's interesting sitting beside someone like her. She has a different perspective. I have more of the analytical. She has more the soft side of things, and it's good to get that knowledge through. And with respect to Dennis, I couldn't help have a better mentor. When I came on council 2 years ago, he was willing to sit down with me and bring me up to speed as quickly as I wanted to. And when it came to election time, I could talk to him and get some insights on what to do and what not to do. Things like watch out for dogs. So that's all I've got to say.
Okay, Councillor Roth.
Well, I would like to reiterate, I want to congratulate Susan on her long term of service. And it's quite a commitment. And like I said earlier, maybe you and I should trade places. and to Bear Lieber, I've enjoyed working with you since 2010. I think you have done an awful lot moving this township forward in its relationships with other municipalities and other levels of government. And I wish you all the best, and you'll be missed.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Bomer.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Well, I've got to say, I can't believe it's been 15 years since I first sat beside Councillor Fielding when I used to hold John's chair over there. And I think we've agreed and disagreed many times on things over the years, and I haven't been keeping score, so I hope you didn't either. But I got to say that when you did join council, the Highway 6 bypass issue had been sitting dormant in a corner for years, and you stuck to that, and you made us stick to that, and to the point where we finally got the province to pass the environmental assessment. And I think it's very rare that a council ever gets a chance to have a private meeting with the minister of the day, and I think that was a big part of making that happen between you and our MPP constantly working at it. That made a huge difference in that project, which created the chance for further movement shortly afterwards. One of the things that I admired was you've always been a tireless champion of the hard work that's done by the volunteers in our community. Councillor Spoulis mentioned the softer side. Well, you've always come to their defense, which speaks volumes, of your commitment to the community. As Rob Stouffville said earlier, we don't do it for the money. You do it to better the community. I've also admired your fact that while I'm a bit of a stumble bum, you're a very clear communicator. I've always admired you for that. And we could all learn by, your ability to speak clearly and listen well to the concerns of the residents. So I'm going to miss that. And I hope that when I look back on our time together on council, which was sometimes I was there, sometimes I wasn't, that I can point to a few things that I did learn from you. And if I think one of them is going to be your being a champion for the community, and of all the things that I could probably do better at is standing up for the things that I believe in. You do that very well. You don't just say what you believe. You actually get out there and make a difference and stand up when you believe it needs to be said. So thank you very much for your 15 years of service.
Thank you, Councillor.
And I have one thing for,
sorry.
I have something for the mayor. Oh. As we all know, we've all sit on different committees and boards and things, and it goes without saying that the chair of any board usually leaves a mark on that board. And there's a couple of things that I wanted to make sure we don't lose sight of. One of the things that you brought to this organization and this horseshoe was the idea of the goal setting at the beginning of term. Mm-hmm. That's very valuable to me, and I think if that tradition continues, we'll be in good hands for a long time, because it helps the staff know where we want to go, and it helps the board, the council, keep their eye on their objective, helps keep their focus off being distracted by shiny baubles that come by. It's not easy, but having that opportunity to do that goal setting up front is a huge benefit to the success of any committee or board or council. So I thank you for that. On a broader level, I think we should be very proud of the work, and you should be very proud of the work that you've done with Tapmo. I can remember it was back in the 70s when this little township took the idea of an aggregate levy to the province, and they adopted it. And it wasn't until probably in maybe 8 or 10 years ago when they finally increased the levy for the first time. But when you were able to get them to double it, your work with the industry and with the ministry to get that aggregate levy doubled again will be a benefit that this community and others will enjoy for a long time. So I don't want that ever to be lost, that was down to your additional hard work over and above the requirements of being mayor. So thank you very much.
Thank you. Councillor Fielding.
Thank you all for your very kind words. This is a very emotional moment for me. I leave with mixed emotions. I still feel that I made the right decision, and that new people who are both here tonight are going to be taking over with fresh ideas. But I did want to take a few moments at this, my final council meeting, to reflect on the long journey as a member of Puslinch Council. Although it may sound cliche, I want to begin by saying that it truly has been a privilege to serve the citizens of our great community, and one of the greatest honors of my life. Over 15 years ago, after working with a neighbor on a community project, she turned to me and said, "One of us has to run for council, and it isn't going to be me." And so it began. I always had a bit of a political bug. I'd always been a bit of a political junkie, so it didn't take too much to talk me into entering my nomination in 2003 and subsequently being elected to a seat on council. First, I want to say thank you to the wonderful staff who have supported me in my quest to make our community a better place. Special thanks to the two outstanding CAOs I've worked with, which is quite a tribute to our township that I've only had two in 15 years. So Brenda Law and Karen, both of you are the catalyst behind what has actually kept this organization ticking, and I sincerely want to thank you for all your help and support over the last years, Karen. It's been a pleasure to work with you. And you gentlemen, my fellow council colleagues. You know, a council is kind of akin to a family. Some days you don't always like each other, but in the end you stick together and we all move on for the greater good. And so, you know, the low point for this past council term was when we lost Councillor Stokely, Wayne. It was a huge blow to this council family. And but we have been blessed to have John come into our fold. And Matthew, I wanted to personally thank you for being my friend and my rock, and for teaching me more about humanity than I ever really knew existed. So thank you, Matthew, for that, and all our interesting chats in the car on the way home. So. To our two new councillors that are coming in, I wish you nothing but success. And I'm confident that each and every one of you, our new councillors and the people who will be remaining, care deeply about Puslinch, and that's why you're here. And that will be your guiding light, because you care to work hard. And I know that you'll always do the right thing for our community. So I feel good about going and knowing that I'm being replaced by people that care. So thank you for that. I've also been blessed to have incredible support throughout my years here from the citizens who shared their problems, their solutions, their hopes, and used me as a conduit to make our community, our home, the best place to live. And I really think that we live in one of the best places around. And this is kind of the hard part. I'm going to talk about my family for a minute. I just wanted to mention my mom. My mom passed away in 2009, but she was here when I was elected in 2003, and she was my most ardent supporter, and there wasn't anything that she didn't think that I could do, and I tried always to live up to her expectations, and I still miss her every single day. I was so lucky to have a mother like her, and I think of my in-laws, Gordon and Irene Fielding, who have also passed away since the time I've been on council, but they were so proud that someone in their family was a member of council, so I hope I did them all proud. And last but not least, I saved this until the end because I might cry in a puddle, but John said he would help me. So I have to point out my 3 daughters and their families, and mostly to my husband, Hugh. There have been a lot of bumps along this ride, and being in politics is not an easy life. There's lots of missed dinners and lots of evenings apart and lots of public scrutiny. And never once did you complain or tell me to quit. You always cheered me on, and I will be forever grateful for the abiding love, patience, and loyalty you and our girls showed me each and every day. I plan on staying active and interested in our community, and I am looking forward to reading a novel or two. That is something that has been severely neglected, since most of my reading was dedicated to the 1,000+ council pages that I read every month. So there will be some changes, but I plan on staying active in this community that I love and serving it in different ways. I hope I've made some differences, and I hope I've made people happy, and that truly I care about this place. So thank you so much. It's meant a lot to me, and it's been I've learned a lot too. So thank you.
So I'd like to start out by thanking all of the members of council, and certainly thanking you, Councillor Fielding, for all of the contributions that you've made for a long time before I was on council, but even the contributions that you've made while I've been here, and everyone else as well. We do, I think it's a very good analogy about a family, about struggling at times, but in the end working it out and working well together. And I'm certainly proud to have had the opportunity to serve the community as mayor for the last 8 years. The council of both terms has definitely moved the township ahead, but we owe a great deal of thanks to our CAO, Ms. Landry, our former CAO, Brenda Law, our treasurer, Mrs. Hann, our director of public works, Mr. Creed, Chief Gomes, who I think has gone back over to the fire department, and all the other staff and firefighters for everything that they have done for our community and to support and assist us. I think back to some of the challenges that we had over the last 2 terms and how interesting they were to deal with at the time, but now looking back, think, gee, you know, it was a lot of activity, but we did the right thing. And I think of just even a smaller one, like the 4-way stop sign at Leslie and Victoria that was pretty controversial at the time, Stroy's Bridge, but they were significant safety issues, and we addressed them and moved on. Before I'd run for mayor, I talked to another mayor in another community and said, you know, what's it going to be like? And he said it was going to take a lot longer to do anything than you could ever imagine. Yeah. And certainly falling into that category is the Morriston bypass. You think of how much work had gone on before, how much work had to go on, and finally we got to the right conclusion, but then it's still years away before we'll actually see the bypass in action. The Cambridge East Corridor and how important it was to those residents and how many meetings and how long it took. And I think of our comprehensive zoning bylaw, that all we went through that, and yet we're still not there yet because of appeals. Someday we will be. I also wanted to point out that unfortunately we suffered the tragic loss of Councillor Wayne Stokely. It was a huge shock to all of us, totally unexpected. But The township residents have now reaffirmed our selection of Councillor Sapoulis, and he's been an incredible councillor. I'm very pleased with what he's done. And when we think back about some of the things we faced, we had no inkling at the time of the 2014 election. The challenges around Eagle Lane, Union Market Square, Omer's liability, and now, still going on in May for some considerable time, prime agricultural designation in the natural heritage system. But on these things, the ones that we have resolved, or as far as we've got, we've all worked together to move them forward. We have had parts where we moved quicker and slower, but at the pace, we've addressed all of the issues that we had. The future is going to be very challenging. The infrastructure deficit that we've been talking about for some time is going to have to be addressed through the asset management plan. I was a very big supporter of the local share program that was proposed by AMO. 1 cent from the provincial sales tax to municipalities for infrastructure. The major impact to our infrastructure is not from the residents here, but we're left with dealing with it. And now that looks like that shortfall is going to have to be addressed by other means, like debt and property taxes. As for me, it's going to seem a little strange at first. Not spending weekends reading agendas or looking at my calendar to plan the weekend and tell my wife what nights I'm not going to be home. But who knows where I'll pop up. I'll pop up somewhere. We'll all move ahead, and I certainly want to wish the next council and all our staff the best. Thank you, everybody.
Can we applaud?
No. You just adjourn the meeting, and then you can applaud. So I have a motion moved by Councillor Bulmer and seconded by Councillor Rowe. The council hereby adjourns at 8:17, and all those in favor?